I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please don't hold that against me. Welcome to Wednesday, July 20th, 2016. Here it is. We find ourselves standing at the peak of the week. It's all downhill from here, folks. I hope things are going well. It's going to be an interesting show. We're going to spend some time talking about where home ownership pays off the most. And that's a topic that dovetails nicely into both folks who want to find a place to live and and hopefully see some growth in their purchase, whether you're just a buyer who wants to live in your house. But it's also a good indicator for folks who might want to jump into the investing community. So we'll run down that list and see what we can learn from that. But before we jump into that, let's take care of the usual. If you'd like to get in contact with me, the best way to do that is at the website, www.therebelbroker.com. If you would like to share some thoughts with me, just use the Contact the Rebel Broker link in the upper right-hand corner and sending along ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions you might have. And I'll be happy to reply as soon as I can. And also, you'll notice at the website at the very top is a big red button. It says help the show by taking this survey. It is a demographic survey to help determine the kind of folks who listen to the show. That would be a great big help for me as the show moves forward and continues to grow. And in addition, if you'd like to participate in the poll that we're running this week, you can. I'm thinking I'm going to put the poll on the front page all by itself, but right now it lives under the fold on show notes. So by under the fold, I mean at the front page, you need to click the Read More button on any show. The most recent show will give you the most recent poll, and then you can participate the poll there. And the question this week is, should Real Estate Realities have one show a week out of the 5 that is not about real estate? I'd love to get your opinion on it. I've had a few people suggest it would be interesting to do that kind of a thing once a week. I'd love to get your feeling on it. As always, I've provided several choices there for you, but I've also left it open for you to suggest something different, like maybe it's once a month or something like that. Anyway, so feel free to share your opinion on that topic. I'm not sure which way I lean. I tend to lean towards sticking with the name of the show, which is, Real Estate Realities. It's right there in the title. So I would hate to set deceptive practices in place when folks queue up that first show and it ends up not being about real estate because they happen to pick a day when it's not a real estate show day. In other news, I'm very happy to report that you can now consume the show on iHeartRadio. I love that I'm on iHeartRadio. I know tons of people who use iHeartRadio. So if you have been forcing yourself to consume the show through some means that you do not like and you prefer iHeartRadio, well, now is your chance. It's on iHeartRadio. Go on over there and just do a search on Real Estate Realities. I think I tried doing a show on a search on Rebel Broker, and it did not come up. But when I did a search on Real Estate Realities, it was the top option available for you. So go on over to iHeartRadio if that is the thing you prefer to use, and check it out. You'll be able to get access to any of the shows. I checked it out earlier today, and it's got pretty much the entire library there. So it's not a truncated list, at least it doesn't appear to be, and you can jump right in and start enjoying the show on your preferred platform, if iHeart happens to be it. So I'm very happy to be on iHeartRadio, primarily because it's a platform I've actually used myself for a variety of things in the past. So I love being on there, and I love the fact that I can reach more people by being on such a widely consumed tool for consuming podcasts, or not just podcasts, anything, music. I mean, In fact, it's part of my part of my morning ritual. The morning radio show that I listen to is streamed on iHeartRadio, and that's how I get access to that in the morning when I'm driving around. So it's a great tool, and I'm hoping it works great for you. We're having another one of those shows where it really brings home how important it is to have some way in your life to filter through the baloney. We've talked about this before, where within articles about subjects, there's these contradictions, right? And the sad thing is we tend to live at a time, and maybe it's always been this way. I guess a lot of people like to think that it was better way back when, and I sincerely doubt that it was substantially better. But everyone seems to be guided more by headlines, and I want to read off for you. Well, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these are just the 5 I kind of picked at random, all from 5 different places, all about the exact same thing. Housing starts increased to 1.189 million annual rate. Housing starts decline year over year amid downward revisions. Housing starts down slightly from last year. U.S. home construction posted solid gain in June. And finally, well, this one didn't load. What the heck's up with that? Oh, there it is. Housing starts bloom in June. So this is one of those situations where, depending on which headline you happen to come across, you walk away with a completely different perception. They're all reporting on the exact same freaking numbers, but they're all sort of pushing you out into the world with, I think, a different feel. And if you happen to meet someone on that line at Starbucks, or you happen to get into the elevator at the same time as some of your best buddies on your way up to the 6th floor to start work, or you're in your carpool and you start to chat folks up about what you just read relating to what's going on with real estate, depending on which one of these places you visited last, you're either going to think things are going well with housing starts or poorly with housing starts. And what's really interesting is which side you come down on is really up to you. You can kind of cherry pick. So what's our job, or my job? My job is to try to sift through the baloney and help us determine, should we be optimistic or should we not be optimistic by housing starts? So let's get to it and see how we should feel about this. Now, some of this needs to hinge on how much emphasis you put on expectations versus comparisons to the last month versus comparisons to the last year. And not too surprisingly, you will tend to find that folks who have a dog in this race relating to real estate, those folks tend to push the perception that everything's peachy. Move on, have a nice day. But let's go ahead and just look at the actual real numbers here. Now, housing starts. Privately owned housing starts in June were at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1.189 million. Now, that's 4.8% above the revised May estimate, but that's just based on an estimate, right? What you want to know is, what about compared to the same time last year? I'll be honest with you. I almost don't care about estimates. I guess an estimate at the time it's made might tell you something. But once the time has come for the number to be delivered that the estimate is based on, what use is it, really, right? Because all that estimate tells you is, are we optimistic or not optimistic today about what's going to happen a month from now, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now? Now, if we meet that number, okay, I guess great. Somebody looked in the crystal ball and got it right. I'm just not sure where the estimate. What do I do with that? When people tell me, you know what? Okay, here's my thing. I'm going to estimate that you are going to have an extra $80 in your wallet come the end of June. Okay, great. Well, great. I hope I do. I would love to have an extra $80 in my pocket. But if you don't, once you've gotten to that point, when you're at the end of June and you do or don't, you just have the reality of it, right? And what you really care about is, do I have more money in my pocket now than I did last month? Or do I have more money in my pocket right now than I did last year? Right? I mean, isn't that the more telling thing? Do these estimates tell you anything? I'm just not sure they do. So let's throw that out. And sadly, if we do throw that out, then we end up with none of the happy headlines. All the happy headlines go bye-bye as soon as we start talking about not paying attention to the estimate. At least as far as privately owned housing starts in June. All right? Now, we're 2% below the June 2015 rate. So that's bad. And why is that bad? Because we're nowhere near equilibrium in the marketplace in terms of how many homes we have versus how many homes people want to buy. Right? I don't feel like we've reached equilibrium. Do you? I sure don't. I don't know where you are. There may be towns out there, and I'm sure there are, where there's plenty of houses to be had, and there's not and it's relatively balanced, and it takes, you've got 6 or 7 months worth of homes in inventory right now, and then things feel pretty normal, and you don't feel a need to overbid, and you feel like on some houses you have some room to negotiate and get a little bit rational about everything. Lots of places that's not true. Most of the metro areas, in fact, there is still the overwhelming trend. And I see this in news articles daily about this next area, this other area of the country where home prices are going crazy and there's multiple offers. Next, single-family housing starts in June were at a rate of 778,000. Now, that's 4.4% the revised May figure. The June rate for units in buildings with 5 units or more was 392,000. Building permits for privately owned housing units authorized by building permits in June were at a seasonally adjusted rate of 1.153 million. That's 1.5% above the revised May rate. So May to June, it was 1.5% above that. But again, it's 13.6% below the June 2015 level. Now, and there's a variety of reasons why I emphasize this year-to-year number instead of the month-to-month number. You're always going to see bizarre well, not bizarre. Not fair to call it bizarre. You're always going to see seasonal adjustments, right? When do you tend to start doing your permits? Well, you tend to start doing your permits in the lead up to the season, right? So I would normally expect things to be relatively flat, say, depending on where you are. I mean, here in California, that's a little bit different. The time that we can build, the sweet spot for building is a pretty darn wide swath of the calendar. It doesn't get crazy here until very, very deep into the winter. And it's true of most of California, right? There's other areas where you hit a certain point in winter, nobody's building anything. At least I would imagine not, right? I've never lived in a socked in wintry place where people own things like snow shovels and those goofy little machines that you push and it shoots the snow off to the left or the right. I've never had to screw with that stuff. But I'm imagining that construction stops. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that construction does not go on when weather gets that bad, right? For houses, So you tend to see sweet spots for when people will submit permits. And I think that it's better to simply look at the same time last year. Don't worry about the seasonal stuff. Don't eliminate that from the equation. We don't want to get any false fear or false optimism based on the fact we're higher or lower than the month preceding. I want to see where I am compared to last year, and then intelligently think to myself, okay, where was real estate a year ago, and where is real estate today, and is there a reasonable expectation that I should feel okay about whatever that difference is? So I would feel okay with this difference if we had built all of these homes over the last 12 months and we suddenly had this great inventory going on and everybody was able to buy and sell without, breaking the bank on anybody's side. And we had a relatively stable inventory. But we don't. We still have ridiculous amounts of demand. We still have people paying over asking price. But I will say this. There's a couple of interesting little things going on that point to me that we're seeing a slowing in the market. Now, here's one hands-on example. So I have a client who's interested in investing in at least a duplex. She's also interested in tris and quads. But we're very much focused on her finding at least a duplex. And so they don't come on, obviously, as frequently as single-family residential homes. But when it's easier to kind of grok the data as you move through the marketplace or chronologically over time, and then see how things change. 2 months ago when we found a place, the place that came on the market sold virtually the day it came on the market. It was one of those deals that came on the market. They had one day where they let everybody see it, and they had offers that day. So it just blasted out the door, right? Another unit comes up a week and a half ago, and it is better than the one that came out a couple of months ago. Price is relatively good. Location is fantastic. It offers a more lucrative mix of unit sizes. It's got a nice 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, or was it a 2.5? But it had a 3-bed in there, which is awesome. 3 beds are fantastic for duplexes in terms of rentability. And then it had two bedrooms on there as well, which are fine. I mean, in the market we have now, those will rent no sweat. But that 3-bed is a sweetheart. You know that sucker's always going to be rented. That one, as always, said all offers expected by, X time on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever day it was. And my buyer is kind of in a position now where we're trying to feel out how the market is going. And we want to see if waiting a little bit longer might prove to give us a more beneficial environment for buying. So I contacted the folks who listed the property, tried to get any information on how many offers were in hand. And they led me to believe, we've got all kinds of offers. You're definitely going to want to have it in by the due date and the due time, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have a packet of disclosures? Yes, we do. Great. Got all those. Send them to my folks. My person decides not to make an offer. So I continue to track it. And the date and time comes and goes. Doesn't go off the market. Doesn't go off the market that night. Doesn't go off the market the next day. I don't call. The listing agent calls me and asks if we still had an offer to submit. And I said, well, I thought you had multiple offers. And the response was interestingly cryptic, and it was, we didn't quite reach expectations in terms of offers. Okay, translation, nobody made any offers on it. Interesting, right? Very much the first time that's happened, where the last time around, just 2 months ago, there were over 10 offers made on the property. And suddenly, that date comes and goes, nobody makes an offer. Very big change. Interesting, and something that I definitely think might be an indicator of where the market might be going. And these things tend to happen in these weird little niches first, right? A lot of times you'll see the changes start to happen in certain marketplaces. We've talked here about how there's a good chance that the change in the luxury market is kind of that first indicator that things might trickle down and see a marketplace getting a little bit less crazy and vibrant at the lower price points. And I think this investment property might just be another symptom of that. We might be seeing that. There was another article that came out talking about how the luxury market has collapsed in, where did it say that was? That was one I wasn't going to talk about today. But in the Hamptons, the housing market has crashed. Luxury home sales dropped by half. That's the headline. Dropped by half as prices plunge. So I've got real world in my hands experience happening right here in Silicon Valley, and I've got the Hamptons, East Coast exclusive rich folk country. Total sales volume in East Hampton fell 53% from a year ago to $44.7 million, as the median sale price fell 54% to $2.38 million. So we're still talking stratospheric prices here and crazy stuff. But if we're looking for indicators of a softening market, these are things that might give us a moment to think and say, it sounds like these things might be softening up. So think about that. That's an interesting thing to put in your pocket and make you wonder, when is the sweet spot? If I'm in a buying position, now if you're someone who's looking to buy for yourself, let's put on the hat of a buyer, this might be the time to get back out and start looking again if you've been putting it off because things have been crazy. We're halfway through July, over halfway through July. And we're going to be heading into August very soon, and the market tends to slow down second week in August, right? Remember, things are delayed by a month, so school tends to start at the end of August. Most folks, if family is an issue, want to be in escrow in time for escrow to close before school starts. But those folks will be scrambling. There are some folks who don't make it, so it'll be folks who their kids start school a week before they're fully moved in or before escrow closes, et cetera. So those kinds of things happen. But that's when you start to see it. You'll start to see a steady decline from that first couple of days in August right until that second week. And then we start to settle into a slightly lower tempo, and then we drop into an even lower tempo normally once we get into November, as folks pull their homes off the marketplace because they want to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's in a house that they don't have to worry about people visiting in terms of coming to purchase it potentially. And the folks who stay on the market tend to be the more motivated, just as a side note for that time period. But all of this indicates that what we might be seeing is an opportunity coming up. If all of these things point to what we're suggesting, a softening in the market to some degree, it's absolutely happening in the luxury marketplace. It'll just be interesting to see if it trickles down. So I've seen it in the luxury market. I've seen it in the investment market here locally with one example. So granted, not a huge sample size. Who knows? Maybe the moon was full, and that's why no one made offers on that place. But I'm betting that we're starting to see a trend here of folks sort of backing away a little bit. We'll have to see if it translates into folks at the single-family residential level, the folks just trying to buy a house, to see if it filters down to that. And I am seeing that homes are tending. We had actually between last month and this month, we saw a small increase in the days on market for homes. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I know I'm still actively looking for a property to purchase, and I'm kind of getting a little bit more enthusiastic about the possibilities as we move into the end of summer. I think there may be some good opportunities for folks. Next on the agenda is the best states for homeowners in 2016, and we'll get to that right after this.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the best states for homeowners for 2016. We'll jump through the top 10 of the list. And of course, as always, I will include a link to this article so that you can get this data yourself and check it out. Now, let's see. They ranked 50 states based on factors including foreclosure rates, burglary rates, and property tax rates. They also looked at the median listing price per square foot, the annual change in home prices per square foot, home affordability, and the annual cost of property taxes and homeowners insurance. And they used all of that to come up with this list. Why do you care about that? Well, I think that no matter who you are, there's a reason to care about this. One, if you're a buyer and you're looking for a place to move to where you want to keep your living housing expenses or what it costs for you to get into home ownership as manageable as possible, well, then this is the kind of list that you want to look at. If you're out there and you're willing to make the move, let's say you're in the same mindset as frankly, as I am at this point. I want to find a place where I can live comfortably, happily, and do what I want to do. And so if I'm a person in that position, what I'm going to do is find the places that sound good to me on this list, or at least that are in the top 10 of this list, and then I'm going to start doing what you can do with the internet and start searching for jobs that fit what I do and see if I can't find something that gives me what I want out of my career. If you're an entrepreneur and you've got some money to spend on doing some investing, this could be a great place to go. Find yourself an investment property and jump in and start to make it happen. What better way to help to secure your investment than knowing you are purchasing a property in an area that's going to be desirable because of the things on here that have nothing to do with the financial side of it in terms of burglary and all those other wonderful things, but also are going to benefit from better tax rates and higher prices per square foot when you resell, and better increase in property values. Those are all great things. Those are things that are going to fuel a successful investment strategy, and knowing where to start in terms of what your search should be, I think, is a good thing. Now, again, I'm going to bring up the idea of being willing to invest in areas outside of where you live. The more I start looking into investment opportunities, the more convinced I become that a smart investor is going to be someone who's willing to go where the best opportunities are. And I think that's one of the things that I bring to the table in this show in terms of helping you have all these different tools and ways to look at different locations across the country to say, you know what, that sounds like a good place to go. Whether we're talking about Memphis, Tennessee and capitalization rates, or we're talking about the lowest barriers to entry in terms of purchase price, whatever, there's all these different ways to look at your strategy as far as what you want to do in terms of building your real estate empire, or at least getting a little something started that you can use as an income source to fuel whatever you're trying to do down the road, or maybe that's your goal, just to live off of your investments. Real estate's going to be a great way to do that, and hopefully these are tools that you're able to use to achieve that. Now, what's my strategy? My strategy has evolved. And I've mentioned this before, I have a two-pronged strategy right now, or rather a single strategy with two possible resolutions. I want to get another property that I will end up living in now, but I will turn the home I'm in now into a rental property. So basically, one of the strategies that I've been suggesting to you all for a long time, and I had a two-pronged approach. One was to buy a lot that was large enough for me to build a home I wanted to live in and potentially even build guest quarters on, so that then once I finally did move out of that, I'd have two rental properties on that one lot. And the other option was to buy an already pre-built home and move into that. And I'll tell you, when you've got a hat you need to wear where you're keeping in mind the return factor on investment in terms of it being an investment, in terms of it being a rental in the future, it sure does change potentially what you're willing to do relating to property purchases. So I found a couple of lots that worked great, but I did my homework up front and discovered that they were in the worst kind of flood zone that there is. The kind of flood zone that would annoy the heck out of me to live on, and I'd have to have a sump pump under the house and all these other kinds of things, and would potentially have a ridiculously high risk, higher insurance costs, all kinds of wicked things that I'm just not interested in dealing with. They were in the area that I liked, but they needed to be on higher ground, and that wasn't happening. So when I broadened my search, I found that I was finding lots, but they were far enough away from the downtown of the area where I live that rentability would be a difficult issue for me. I would have to probably charge less for the distance from town. If the market started to turn and the rental market started to soften, I would be one of the first properties that would suffer from a reduction because folks would be drawn to living more downtown and probably be able to do it for cheaper. So I need to keep, if you're doing the same thing I'm doing, or if it's a strategy you're entertaining, maybe you've got 4 or 5 different ways you're willing to jump into this process. As long as you kind of keep the goal in mind, where you want to head with it, what your plan down the road for these properties is, keep that stuff in mind because it's going to guide the decisions that you make. Okay, so today let's put on our what are the best states in terms of potentially drawing people because of what it offers in terms of low crime and all these other wonderful things, but then also gives me some great opportunities in terms of low cost to get into the race with other people in terms of buying a property, but also keeps my costs down in terms of taxes and insurance and all these other things. Okay, now there were 2 key findings from this report. Number 1, watch out for Wyoming. For the second year in a row, Wyoming ranks as the state with the best environment for home ownership. I like Wyoming. I've been through Wyoming a couple of times. The next time I do a road trip to look at properties, Wyoming is definitely on my list, but it's super duper flat. So I'm not real sure how I'd feel about that. But if I'm just looking for an investment, doesn't matter if I would want to live there because tons of people do. So it's the idea of providing a product that people who are there will want, not necessarily buying a product that you want to live in. But if Wyoming's for you, if flatlands are for you, then it could be a perfect opportunity for you to jump in there. And I'll tell you what, in my brief time in Wyoming, I did get a chance to look at some properties, and I love some of the architecture in Wyoming, and I love some of the older homes that are available in some of the older towns. So there was a lot of draw there for me in terms of just very attractive housing. The cost of home ownership is high in the Northeast, is there another key finding. Owning a home can be expensive in places like Massachusetts and New York when you consider that states like New Jersey and Connecticut have double-digit foreclosure rates still, and high housing costs. Buying a home in this region might seem like a risky move. I'm sure that that's also going to depend on specific areas within those states. But I'll tell you, it's not on my short list. I absolutely would not go to either one of those places. The holding cost of property in New Jersey is ridiculous. That's one of the reasons why it's the number one most left state in the union, according to the moving truck companies. All right, so let's go ahead and start at the top of the list, since we already sort of revealed what was residing there at the top. Number one is Wyoming. It's got a relatively low property tax rate, low average closing costs, making it very easy for folks living in Wyoming to afford a home. Wyomingites enjoy quite a few perks, including clean air and gorgeous views. And with an average burglary rate of 289 per 100,000 people, residents barely need to worry about someone breaking into their homes. As an additional piece of information, the average home price in Wyoming is $204,100, and home appreciation last year was 2.5%. Next on our list, South Dakota. If you own a home, you generally want its value to increase over time. That way you can build equity and hopefully sell your home one day for a nice chunk of change. Home values in South Dakota are on the rise. In 2015, the home price per square foot went up by 7.5%. And this is smartasset.com who's putting out this data. In their 2015 analysis, they saw home price per square foot appreciate by 6.3%. Data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows that the median home value in the state is still only $142,300. So, again, the top two states, relatively low barriers to entry, with South Dakota, the number two position, only coming in at $142,300. That's a great deal. And you have to remember, I calibrating myself to this. I mean, when I live in an area where the average home price is almost $800,000, that's awesome. I think that's a great. If nothing will motivate you to jump in and potentially start thinking about getting an investment property in these areas, these prices absolutely should be a big push for you, particularly given the fact that these also score high because your holding costs of that property are low. Now, also remember what we talked about yesterday. I honestly believe that the 30-year fixed rate mortgage may be going away. I think there's a really good chance. I can't say how long it's going to be, but I think it's absolutely a logical conclusion that sometime in the near future, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is going to go away. Does that mean a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? I'd say within 10 years, almost unquestionably. Within 5 years, I think is extremely possible. So if this is something you're entertaining, the idea of acquiring property to a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage that's as low as they are right now, I think is a ridiculously smart way to get in. I mean, imagine jumping forward in time 10, 15 years. There is no longer a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. So there's a certain level of uncertainty in your loan. Imagine looking back and kicking yourself for not having made a move when you can get money this cheaply for 30 years. That's one of those things I would kick myself for if I didn't take advantage of that. And I believe in it enough that I think anyone, including myself, should accelerate your plan. And I mentioned before what my plan is here in the state. My plan is to buy one more property in California. So I'll have 2 California properties, 1 Hawaii property, and then I plan to relocate to some other state. Who knows? Maybe one of these states. Arizona's kind of hovering around the top of my list right now. But then I'm going to go to one of those places, and I am hopefully going to be able to get a couple of properties there and just continue to reap rewards from the properties that I'm renting. So that's kind of my long-term plan. It'd be sweet if I could add a 3rd California property to that, but I'm not sure that particular call is in the cards, but we'll see. Number 3 on the list, Idaho. Conditions for homeowners in Idaho have improved since last year. In 2015, home prices increased by 9.8% on a per square foot basis, making Idaho the state with the highest rate of price appreciation at that time. In 2014, home prices per square foot only increased 1.7%. Homeowners in the Gem State might also be happy to know that foreclosure and burglary rates have declined since 2015 by 31.5% and 12.7% respectively. Annually, property taxes and insurance costs are just $1,777. That means homeowners in Idaho pay less than their counterparts in all but 3 states. Average home price in Idaho was $173,900. So again, top three all have fairly low barriers to entry in terms of being able to purchase that first investment property. So these are great opportunities. All right, next on our list at number 4, North Dakota. North Dakota has the lowest foreclosure rate in America. Data from RealtyTrack shows that as of May 2016, there was only one foreclosure for every 162,356 homes. That's a great number. And it's also encouraging because it communicates a variety of things. It indicates stability in prices. You're not getting people who are feeling like they need to abandon their homes or let foreclosures occur because they've lost so much value. In times that I have looked at real estate data relating to North Dakota, it seemed like the real estate bubble kind of burst, and folks in North Dakota didn't really even notice. They sort of just brushed it off, moved on, and their values remained relatively level. One problem for North Dakota is falling oil prices could cause problems for the housing market in the state. We've talked about this before. Foreclosure rate, they're going to watch the foreclosure rate to see how it's impacted, as well as North Dakota's overall ranking in next year's study. So I actually think that the boom of building in North Dakota represents a potential opportunity. We're not seeing any indications that we're going to have a robust energy sector increase. I don't think we're going to see crude oil prices increasing. It just doesn't seem to be happening. A lot of the pundits out there are talking in terms of it being an extremely long stretch of time before we're going to start to see oil prices go back up. With that being the case, as each day, week, month passes in North Dakota, I think your ability to potentially get a great deal on a property is just increased. So definitely keep this on your list. It represents a slightly higher level of risk simply because there's a little bit more there's a little more fluctuation potential there because of the energy sector issues. But remember, the energy sector thing kind of came along after the downturn, so there's definitely survivability built into the market in North Dakota. But if you definitely want to be picky about where you're buying and making sure that you're not buying into communities that are in decline because of the energy sector downturn. In North Dakota, the average cost of a home was $198,100. Last year, homes appreciated about 11.3%, so still saw a big increase last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens this year with those numbers. Next on our list, number 5, Utah. If you're looking for an affordable place to purchase a home, you might want to consider moving to Utah. On average, homeowners in Utah pay fewer closing costs than those in all but 3 states. The cost of homeowners insurance remains low as well, and it hasn't changed since they last conducted this survey or conducted this study in 2015. Folks who own homes pay just $580 on average each year to protect their property. So those are ridiculously low holding costs. And in terms of what the average price of a home is, the state average comes in at about $228,000. In Salt Lake City, $242,000, West Jordan, $227,000, Sandy, $266,000. And those are Zillow home value estimates. So the highest one so far on our list in terms of barriers to entry. But the real number, and that's an acquisition issue, right? If it's going to be a problem for you to acquire at that price point, it's a problem. So you might need to look at these other marketplaces. If not, though, the math you're going to want to start doing when comparing these various cities is, okay, I find a specific property. What are the actual numbers on it? It may cost me more to acquire here, but does that result in a higher monthly return in terms of the rent that I can acquire for that property? And you'll just want to do the capitalization rate, right? The capitalization rate is designed to tell you how much you're making off of your money. It's you've got X amount of dollars invested in it, and what's the return on the money you have invested in it? It's a way to decide whether or not you want your money in real estate or something else. If you know you can drop it into a savings account at 1%, well, then there's no point in taking that money and dropping it into real estate if your cap rate's only 1%. If you're only making 1% on the money that you have invested in a piece of property and you can stick it in a bank and get 1% interest, you can't. You could maybe for something relatively conservative, but I know that the account I have at the bank where I currently have a savings account is earning me 0.01%. So that's very low. I'm sure you could shop around and find something else. But that's the point of that number. So if you've got $100,000 invested, you simply figure out how much you're making and then how much that's making you per year. What percentage of the money you have in is the money you're making. And that's really the number you want to focus on when you're evaluating these. Next on our list, Colorado, one of my favorites. It's on my short list of places I like. I've been to Colorado a number of times, both Denver and the areas to the north of Denver. I've been all over those areas. I have extended family that still lives there, and I think Colorado is a great choice. And I love mountain living, so I'm kind of a sucker for that. Now, in their latest study on the best housing markets for growth and stability, 3 Colorado metro areas ranked in the top 10. Now, the best on the data that they pulled for the analysis, they concluded that Colorado as a whole was a great place for people wanting to own homes. The state's average effective property tax rate, 0.58%, is among the lowest rates in the nation. Plus, it has the second highest rate of home price appreciation per square foot. Now, if we go ahead and do a quick search on what the average price of a home is in Colorado, the median home value in Colorado is $301,000. Home values have gone up 12% over the past year. Zillow predicts that they'll rise another 4.4% within the next year. So, I mean, that, again, barrier to entry, but remember what we talked about when we were getting some feedback from a listener to the show who was in Denver, and they were talking about how the rental market incentives were being offered and all this other wonderful stuff, but the purchase market was ridiculously difficult. Now, I haven't heard from those folks in a couple of months, so I'm not sure if things have changed there, but this might represent an opportunity that's less rent-based and more rehab-based. You go in there, you buy the worst property on the block, you turn it into a great property on the block, and then you make money that way if that's how the market's going. But if I'm not mistaken, the rental market they were referring to was apartment style. So it may be that single-family residential homes are actually a booming business in Denver. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, but there's always a slight difference, and sometimes a major difference, between apartment-style rentals and then single-family residential rentals. And if we're in a marketplace where there's a huge demand for single-family residential purchases, those folks got to live somewhere where they're trying to find a house, and frequently they're going to want to gravitate towards a single-family residential to rent till they find something they can buy. And with the buying market being as competitive as it is, you may still end up with someone who is going to rent your single-family residential property for a long time. And in an environment like that, I would only do minimum of a 1-year lease on that type of house. I wouldn't do a month-to-month just because of that particular dynamic in that marketplace. All right, next on our list, Minnesota comes in at number 7. Minnesota ranks as the 7th best state for homeowners in 2016. It didn't rank as well as it did in 2015. It still ended up in the top 10. Home prices per square foot climbed 6.6%, and the average price of a home is now just over 3 times the median household income. In addition to its relatively healthy housing market, the state of Minnesota has a relatively low unemployment rate of 6.5, according to the 2014 census. And in terms of average home price, we're seeing $173,400 with home appreciation at 5.3%. So again, relatively lower on the obstacles or the barrier to entry in terms of purchase price. So it could be a good option for you. Number 8, Montana, another one I like. Montana is one of the least densely populated states in the country. Maybe that's why I like it so much. Recent data from the Census Bureau says that there are only 6.8 people per square mile. If you prefer to have plenty of breathing room, living in Montana might not sound like such a bad idea. Now, according to RealtyTrack, the state's foreclosure rate is fairly low. There's one foreclosure for every 5,142 homes. What's more, its average effective property tax is 0.84%, less than 1%. That means that tax rates for Montanans are, on average, lower than those for their neighbors in North Dakota and South Dakota. In terms of what the average price is for a home in Montana, that comes to $198,400. So again, relatively low barrier to entry for you to acquire that property for you to be in or for you to potentially make it a flip or a rental. Number 9, Iowa. According to 2014 data from the Census Bureau, there are over 3 million people living in the state of Iowa. Median home value of $133,100. The average home in the Hawkeye State costs 2.5 times the median income. Census Bureau also reports that just 22.4% of homeowners with mortgage debt are cost burdened, meaning that they spend at least 30% of their household income on housing costs. On a national level, 2015 data from the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University shows that over 25% of homeowners spent more than 30% of their income on housing-related expenses. So this is a place where you can buck that trend. You can go below that 30% mark instead of above it like so many folks where I am are currently doing. And finally, number 10 on our list, Virginia was the only state in the East Coast to make it to the top 10 in both 2015 and 2016. The ratio of the state's median home price to its median income, 3.82, hasn't changed since last year, but analysis shows that its foreclosure rate and burglary rates have both fallen, making it a little bit more desirable. Now, in terms of average home price, we are seeing that this is probably the most challenging location. The average home price fell slightly compared with last June to $593,026. That's up 2.6% compared to June 2015 when the average price was $577,783. The median sold price of homes this June, which was $525,000, rose by 3.14% compared to the median price of $509,000 in June 2015. So clearly, Virginia is going to have as far as a general number across the state, is going to have your highest barrier to entry. So I think that it's 10th for a reason. I probably wouldn't jump in at that point unless rental rates were at a point where that number made a lot of sense in terms of you being able to have a good capitalization rate and the amount of money involved was actually paying you dividends at a level that made sense for the increased amount of investment. All right, folks. As always, I appreciate you making the show a part of your daily routine, and if you could take a minute to give the show a review in iTunes or whatever tool it is you use to consume the show, that'd be fantastic. The only way the show grows is through your support, and you guys have been fantastic. Even just over the last couple of weeks, there's been kind of a nice spike in folks downloading the show, and that's absolutely because I'm hopefully getting to more people through more avenues. I'm getting it out onto more platforms, but also it's because you folks are out there spreading the word and making it happen for me. And for that, I will be forever in your debt. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.